Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. I'm Matt Connarton, and the Honorable Gary S. Hopper is not with us. We hope to have him back soon, but he's still recuperating. So, Gary, if you're watching, we miss you. Get well, and I know you'll be back soon. And we do have with us, however, a great guest, a returning guest. This is, I think, your third time on the show, Kurt. This is Kurt Wuelper from New Hampshire Right to Life.
New Hampshire Right to Life, yes.
Okay. And when did we have, it wasn't that, what was it, maybe 6 months ago last time you were here?
Maybe that long ago. Might not be quite that long.
Yeah, it's hard to keep track
It was
of.
the beginning of the legislative session anyway.
Okay,
somewhere in there.
It's hard to keep track of everybody we've had.
Yeah,
on.
I guess that would be 6 months ago, so that's probably right.
All right. Wow. I got it. See, time's kind of a blur for me, so the fact that I was even remotely in the ballpark is encouraging.
I'm really bad on relative times. My wife's really, really good at that.
Yeah.
Not me.
Well, you meet a lot of people. I mean, certainly with what you do, you meet a lot of people, so it becomes, do you find it, I find the more people I meet, the harder it is to remember names. Like, there was one time I was great at remembering names, and now it's, like, really kind of dicey.
A lot of that has to do with, I think, your attitude.
Yeah.
And there's some tricks that you learn. I'm not very, what do I want to call it, skillful at this.
Really?
It is a skill, I think. More. And some people have a gift.
Sure.
I heard Bill Clinton had that gift. He'd meet one guy, somebody, right, at an event. And like 3 years later, he'd see him again, and he'd say, "Oh yeah, and you have this and that," and he'd remember everything.
Oh,
about
yeah.
the guy. And it was amazing.
Yeah.
But I'm not that way either.
Yeah.
So, but what I do try to do is I try to call people by their name
Yeah.
when I first meet them.
Yeah.
And if you just say their name to them a few times, they like to hear it.
Right, and it helps you
cement it
remember.
in your mind. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's something to do.
It's good advice. Yeah.
So, but yeah, I guess I run into quite a few people, but not any more than I don't think to anybody else.
Right. Well, tell us about, for the uninitiated, for those who haven't seen you before and aren't familiar with your organization, what is New Hampshire Right to Life, and what do you do for them exactly?
Okay, so New Hampshire Right to Life is I used to say it's the oldest and largest. Now I just say it's because the other pro-life group in the state. Well, I'll still say it that way. The oldest and largest pro-life group in the state of New Hampshire. We've been around since 1971, 2 years pre-Roe versus Wade.
Yeah.
And what we do is we advocate for protection of innocent life from conception until natural death.
Okay.
That's what we do. And we do that in every kind of venue that is possible. So obviously we're going to talk about legislation here today, but we do it by encouraging people and to witness in front of the abortion clinics, which we'll be talking about that more later on.
Yeah.
We do that by having educational events. We do that by going out and speaking to any group of people that wants us to on these issues, educating the people, the public, in any aspect of life issues that we want to talk about. We do that by, for example, we were major players in the CMC Dartmouth-Hitchcock merger. We were the opposition. We led the opposition. We financed most of the opposition to that, and praise God for the second time, because it was the same thing the first time. The first time when they merged with Elliott, we actually took them into court to get that overturned.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
So you were opposing the merger?
Absolutely, because Catholic Medical Center is a pro-life hospital.
Okay, it's a Catholic
Right.
hospital, so they don't do certain things.
Well, they're pro-life, right? They
Yeah.
don't do abortions. They treat. It's remarkable how many very elderly people who are sick cannot get very good care in hospitals like Dartmouth-Hitchcock. They're triaged, right?
Yeah.
Just like the IPAB under the Affordable Care Act will do. They'll say, well, we can't afford to spend the money to keep this person alive and give them good care.
Right.
So, no, we're not doing that.
So you guys were opposing the merger based on that because they would have.
Dartmouth-Hitchcock was absolutely a big driver of abortion and other things, other life issues with which we disagree. They came and testified for the physician-assisted suicide bills when they were in the legislature. We couldn't be any more opposed to anybody. But there was no way of managing. You and I were talking about a little bit outside. There's no common ground between pro-life and pro-death. Right. So if you want to get rid of the old people, if you want to get rid of babies, there's no common ground there between me and you.
Right.
Okay? And that's what we said to the Attorney General's office about Catholic Medical Center and Dartmouth-Hitchcock. Dartmouth-Hitchcock advocates for all of these types of things, and they practice all of these types of things Catholic Medical Center stands squarely against those things. You can't make those two work together.
So this worked? You were able to prevent the merger?
Yeah, the Attorney General's Office, the Division of Charitable Trusts, adopted our position.
No kidding.
And said, because they're both nonprofits, they're both under the Division of Charitable Trusts.
Oh, okay.
So
Gotcha.
they have to go to get that approval. And this time, that's what the division said. They said, no, you can't do this.
Interesting. Okay.
There's no way these two mission statements that they have can be merged together because they're so adamantly opposed to each other.
Okay. Okay.
And so that just ended that. And
what do you do for the organization? Are you the head of the organization?
I'm the president of the organization right now.
Okay.
And what I do is I'm its primary public face, not its only one. I was hoping to have another board member sitting here beside me tonight, yeah. But that didn't work out just as well as it could.
Really?
Yeah, and I run the show. I mean,
yeah.
So I do a lot of stuff that other people don't want to do. A lot of stuff like, oh, we have to register for this event. We have to get insurance for that.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so
stuff that's got to get done. But
right.
Yeah.
And try to keep us on track toward building a stronger organization that's more effective.
How long have you been in that position?
About 5 years now.
Okay.
A little more. This might be my last year.
Oh, really?
Well, I'm planning on running for the House myself.
Oh, you are? Oh, wow. Good for you.
This year.
Yeah. Wow.
And
good.
If I do happen to be favored by the electorate, then I don't think that's compatible with, well, you know how much time Gary puts in at the House.
Right, right.
It's not compatible with being, and I don't think it's right. There's a clause in the Constitution of the state of New Hampshire that says nobody who's holding a seat in the House can be an advocate for a position.
Okay.
Or an issue.
I can see how that would be viewed
now,
as a conflict.
Everybody advocates for issues.
Right, right. Yeah.
You wouldn't be going there unless
Right.
there was something that was really driving you to make that sacrifice.
Sure.
So everybody advocates for issues. So I'm thinking that this really means that you can't be the head of some group like that.
Right. Yeah.
So if I do get elected, I'll be stepping down as president. Right now, and I'll get this all vetted by the ethics committee of the House, but
sure.
I intend to stay on the board and continue to be part of what New Hampshire Right to Life is doing.
Yeah.
But I would be stepping down as president. And
have you held public office before?
Not above moderator.
Okay. Yeah.
So, full disclosure, I was moderator.
Oh, okay.
School moderator for a couple of years.
Oh, that's something.
Something. Yeah.
So how long have you been with the organization? Were you with it for a while prior to becoming president, or?
Just about a year or so before.
Okay.
I really hadn't been. I'd supported New Hampshire Right to Life. You know, I'd been to their events and things like that.
Yeah.
But no, my involvement with the pro-life movement before I became heavily involved in New Hampshire Right to Life was really with a pregnancy center in Dover.
Yeah.
And just, you know, writing letters to legislators and things like that.
Yeah.
But my wife ran the pregnancy center now. It's called Options in Dover for a number of years, and I was very active in that.
Yeah.
She and I did some other things as well. I was real proud to get the Whitcomb Award from Options. At that time, it was Options for Women in Dover for advocating for the preborn in the Seacoast area.
Okay.
But I was out, you know, I was in life chains and we're doing other things. And what really got me involved with New Hampshire Right to Life was when the Center for Bioethical Reform came with their display, which is the primary thing that they do. They go to college universities and colleges and universities.
Right.
They have these enormous, extremely graphic pictures, 4 feet by 8 feet, comparing abortion with various other genocides throughout history.
Yeah.
And they set up these displays in heavily trafficked areas of college campuses and then talk to the people that come over to say hi.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're typically not well received.
I bet. Yeah.
But we do get to interact with an awful lot of people.
Sure.
I wouldn't have believed it was as difficult as it was. It's
really?
Yeah. Well, you stand with your backs to all these pictures.
Yeah.
And they give you like 1 hour training beforehand.
Yeah.
And they say, look, you wouldn't be here if you don't know how to talk about life issues. When you're at loggerheads with somebody, just turn around and point to the pictures.
Right.
And just say to them, so you're supporting that.
Yeah.
Right? See, I'm comparing, just like that picture right there, the Holocaust of abortion with the Holocaust in Germany. I'm comparing abortion in the United States with slavery in the United States. And the pictures are right there.
Yeah.
So you're constantly looking at these really gruesome pictures.
Yeah.
And it is hard.
Sure, sure.
Right? It's just hard to do that. But that's one of the great reasons why, believe it or not, the pro-life movement needs to use those kinds of images.
Mm-hmm.
Because we constantly have to be letting people see what is really going on in abortion and behind the walls of the abortion clinics.
Right.
You know, abortion is, in my view, the biggest civil rights movement of our time. And every other civil rights movement has been driven by pictures. Amazingly, the civil rights movement in the 60s was driven by Emmett Till. Emmett Till was a young black man from Chicago.
Yeah.
Went down to Mississippi, make a long story short, got beaten to a pulp, killed, took his body back to Chicago, and they were going to have a closed casket funeral because they couldn't even make him look presentable.
Right, right.
His mother said, no, we're going to have an open casket because I want the world to see what they did to my boy.
I didn't know about that part of it.
And so the pictures of Emmett Till went out across the country, and the country got outraged.
Yeah.
They got outraged at the brutality that came from the segregationists.
Right, and being able to see it.
They could see it.
Because if you can see something, you connect with it.
It was the same thing with the famines in Somalia, right?
Yeah.
Put it on the TV screens of the United States of America, and everybody jumps on the bandwagon.
Powerful stuff.
They see what's going on. Right? It was the same thing with the Vietnam War. Right? The opposition to the Vietnam War was driven by the pictures.
Yeah.
And some of us, even people who weren't really active. I mean, I served in Vietnam, but
did you? Yeah.
But for those who remember some of those pictures to this day.
Sure. Oh yeah.
Right? And the horror of what was going on over there, and it just became more than what the American public could support. So it's the pictures are powerful tools, and they have a way of awakening the sensibilities of people, and we need that awakening.
Yeah. We'll get into some of the legislation. I'm interested in this because it's funny. Because when we were out in the control room, you commented that maybe some of this we'll agree on. And you may be right, because now all cards on the table for those who don't know. And typically on this show, I'm usually the most liberal guy in the room.
Oh, well, you are now, so that's
I don't know. Right. Which is, well, I'm used to that on this show.
Typical.
I'm used to that on this show. And I don't consider myself a liberal. I think I'm a centrist, but on this show, I definitely end up, we always joke that next to Gary, I look like Karl Marx. But I consider myself solidly pro-choice. And I don't know, it's come up on the show, but I don't know if it came up when you were here, because we've done a lot of, Gary's brought on a lot of pro-life guests. But one of the things that we have talked about on the show, and we may have discussed it with you, was the parental notification bill.
Yeah, I don't think we actually talked about that.
Okay, we didn't talk about that. But I have noticed in my conversations with other folks who consider themselves pro-choice, if I tell them, I was thinking about this just today. I started thinking about this when Gary told me that you were coming on tonight, because it's interesting. Again, I consider myself pro-choice, but if I tell someone who is pro-choice that I would support parental notification, if I were serving in the New Hampshire State Legislature, that is something I would vote for. To me, it makes perfect sense logically. If you're, we exist in an era where if the school nurse wants to give a kid an aspirin, they got to get permission from the parents in triplicate. But if your kid has an abortion, you're not even supposed to know about it?
No.
That seems very strange to me. I don't even have any children, and yet the little paternal instinct that I do have says to me, well, if I had a daughter, I'd want to know.
See, you would think that we could find common ground around many of these issues, and we are going to talk about a couple of them today.
Yeah.
But we don't.
Yeah.
And for me, this is very telling, because you take parental notification.
Yeah.
Right? Now, this is one of the weakest forms. Most states have parental consent, which I wouldn't agree anyway, but that's what they have.
Yeah.
Right? And it's both parents, at least if you have notification, both parents need to be notified if they exist.
Right.
Not in New Hampshire. Right? But that bill went through and was waiting, had been to the Supreme Court, they'd struck down some part of it and sent it back to the district court to tweak it. Right?
Yeah.
When the Democrats repealed it, they repealed it because they couldn't stand, and this is the power of abortion in our legal, our judicial, in our, well, it's in the judicial system too, but in our legislatures, this is its power.
Sure.
Right? Something that 80% or more of the people could agree on will not stand when the pro-aborts have power.
Well, see, when I tell someone, see, this is interesting because I remember when Gary and I were discussing it with whoever we were talking about this with specifically, Gary had made the observation that, the pro-choice Democrats in office won't go along with something like parental notification, but if you talk to the average pro-choicer, they can at least see the validity in that. But I got to tell you, I was thinking about it today, and I realized something. And as someone who's pro-choice, I don't want to say this, but I think he might have been giving pro-choice folks too much credit, because when I tell a pro-choice person that I'm okay with parental notification and I would support that, the reactions I get are usually something like, wait a minute.
What's wrong with you?
You're telling me you're pro-choice? You're not pro-choice.
Yeah.
You're okay for... I think part of it is the people kind of... and I think both conservatives and liberals think this way on various issues. It's the slippery slope thing.
Well, it is the slippery slope thing.
If you allow this, then eventually abortion's illegal, et cetera. I'm not defending that point of view because I support parental notification, but I think that's what does play into it.
It does play into it, right? Because remember, I said there's no compromise between the pro-death and the pro-life sides, right?
Yeah.
And particularly the pro-death side, the pro-aborts, see anything as it's going to take us down the road to perdition.
Right.
Right? That's why we're going to talk in here, we're going to talk about the Griffin's Law to protect babies, wanted babies who are killed by what would otherwise be homicide.
Okay, yeah, that's also known as is it the fetal homicide?
It's known as fetal homicide. It used to be known, anyway, yes, fetal homicide, right?
Okay.
And we're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
But the reason that got so mangled in the House is because the pro-aborts said, wait a minute, if we do this, that's going to undermine a woman's right to choose. So we can't have justice for these babies and these families because they think that it's another step down the slippery slope. Now, they're right. I won't dispute that they are right.
Right. Your end game is you'd like to see abortion
we have,
illegal.
And this is why there's no reconciliation.
Yeah.
The problem we have is that some of us believe that people are endowed by their Creator with the inalienable right to life. Mm-hmm. And the other part of us thinks that you can classify whole groups of human beings as non-people.
Yeah, that I remember we did discuss the last time you were here. Who was that? Is it a college professor who wrote something?
Well, this singer who's the college professor you're talking about.
Oh, okay, yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And he's perhaps the worst from my perspective.
Yeah, he's kind of an extreme example of
extreme.
Yeah.
But I give the guy a lot of credit. He's right out in the open what he thinks and what he says.
Sure.
So now he's advocating that it's okay for parents to abort their children up to 18 months old. Mm-hmm. Post-birth abortion up to 18 months.
Yeah. What was his rationale again?
Well, they're not really people.
Okay, yeah.
So they're non-people.
At 18 months, they get personhood or something.
Well, you got to have some degree of sentience, of the awareness of what's around you and your future or some such. I try not to read too much Peter Singer.
Right, yeah, yeah.
Enough so I know what he's talking about.
Right, yeah, because it is an extreme point of view.
Right. But this is the same thought. All he does is he takes the pro-choice position and he carries it further down its logical path.
Right.
Because if you can say a baby that's, well, say a viable baby, right, is a non-person, well, then you have to find some other time at what becomes a person. Now, there's no rationale for birth being that particular moment, right? Mm-hmm. So you get to choose. You get to choose any time you want.
Right.
So he used to advocate for just a 30 days, and then he went to 90 days.
Oh, really? Wow.
Because he's been thinking about it more.
Right.
And as you try to define some set of attributes that would make you be a person.
Yeah. It's stunning.
You get to pick that anywhere you want. It's like under Roe versus Wade. They said you can't ban abortion in the first trimester. They knew at the time. Blackmun actually said, this is an arbitrary line that we're drawing. There's no rationale behind it. Mm-hmm. It's just a point. We have to, if we're going to say we're going to do this, we have to put a line somewhere, so we're putting it there. Mm-hmm. Right? Now, since they've said you can't ban it post-viability, right? And the big thing in our country now is 20-week abortion bans, because the medical evidence is strong that babies feel pain perhaps more severely than any other time in our lives.
Well, it varies a lot by state, though, doesn't it? Or does it?
Well, yeah, it does.
Okay.
Well, because many states like New Hampshire, you can have an abortion up to the minute of birth.
Oh, you can?
Oh, yeah. If your wife's in labor,
yeah,
right, and she's ready to have the baby, she can change her mind and have an abortion.
Wow, really?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Wow, I didn't know that.
That's New Hampshire for you.
And that's irrespective of whether or not her life's in danger or anything. She can.
Oh yeah, it's her choice.
Legally, they can.
It's her choice, and you have nothing to say about it.
Interesting.
You have nothing to say about it. If she changes her mind and wants to have an abortion, done.
That I didn't realize. I didn't realize it was that unrestrictive in the state in terms of.
Well, we have no laws protecting the. We don't even protect the unborn in the case of murder.
Yeah.
Right. We have nothing that protects the unborn in our state.
Well, let's talk about that now. So this is the, like I said, I know it as fetal homicide.
Right, it's House Bill 1503.
Okay, and this is something that's currently in play?
It's currently in play. The Senate, it's already passed the House. It's at the Senate. It's in the Judiciary Committee. They had a hearing yesterday, and we'll see what they do with it.
Okay.
All right, so this is the deal. In 2009, the Supreme Court of New Hampshire overturned the conviction of a guy named Lamey. Lamey was convicted of vehicular homicide of a preborn child.
Okay.
They did that, they said, because the law did not, the definition of another in the law did not include the preborn.
Okay.
Now, the jury thought it did.
Okay.
Because they convicted Lamey.
Right.
The prosecutor thought it did because they prosecuted him for the crime. He got convicted. The Supreme Court said no.
Interesting.
Overturned that one part of it. He was convicted of like 15 other crimes.
Okay.
Including other homicides.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's not like he got off scot-free.
Sure.
We're going to get to that in a minute.
Okay.
They said if you find this decision as upsetting, or some word as that as we do, then it's up to the legislature to fix it. So, in 2012, there was House Bill 217, which is identical to what House Bill, this one, Griffin's Law is.
Okay.
Was. It passed the House, passed the Senate, went to Governor Lynch, he vetoed it, came back to the House, and we failed to override the veto by a handful of votes.
So it was close? In terms
it
of
was
the
close.
override
The Senate would have overridden easily.
Yeah.
Right? But the House, we lost by, I think it was 12 votes.
Oh, wow, that is
like
close.
5-6 people changing their mind,
that is
their
close,
position.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
So now we're back again, and again, but see, this crime recurs.
We should clarify what we mean here, what we're talking about.
So we're talking about including a fetus in the definition of another for homicide.
Right.
So, and usually we're talking about negligent homicide, like when the guy jumped his car off of 89, right?
Yeah.
And killed 3 people.
Yeah.
Well, he was only charged with 2 murders because the third one was preborn, and he couldn't be charged for that.
Okay.
Okay, it was the same situation with Lamy. In the case, this was called Griffin's Law because a guy ran a red light, crashed into a car. Griffin was a 7.5-month-old baby that didn't survive that. His mother did survive.
Yeah.
But he didn't. Right? So they named the law this time when they introduced it after him, but it's the same exact language.
Okay.
Right? So that's the deal. Right? And it's negligent. It does any kind of homicide.
Sure.
We want to say if you commit homicide against a baby, then that's a crime.
Yeah.
All right.
I would certainly support that.
Yeah. Well, the Judiciary Committee in the House did not.
What was there? Did they explain when they? Did they explain what their rationale was?
Slippery slope.
Okay.
Well, that's what they said.
Okay.
If you were there,
yeah,
the members who really were opposed to it, this is what they said: it's the slippery slope. It's going to undermine the woman's right to choose. So what they did,
I don't see how. That's
because
interesting.
it recognizes in law.
Oh, okay.
But we already recognize in law that the preborn are people.
Mm.
So you can leave your estate right now to your preborn
right
relative or anybody
true.
if you want to.
That's true. Yeah.
Right? You can do that.
You're right. Yeah.
And that child, not yet born, has the right to inherit. But they don't have the right to justice for being killed.
Right.
They don't have any right at all to actually live.
Yeah, interesting.
Which raises the interesting question that in that scenario, if you left my daughter-in-law's child, right?
Yeah.
A bunch of money, and she got pregnant and aborted the child, would that be murder so she could get the money herself?
That's an interesting scenario.
It is an interesting scenario. But anyway, so that's the deal. So the House, what they did, they substituted for the whole bill, they changed the whole bill around, threw the whole original language out, put in a whole new bill, and said, look, if it's negligent homicide or if it's manslaughter, and the person is convicted of that crime, and the baby is involved, then the penalties will be doubled.
Okay.
Right? And if it's second-degree murder, which is already punishable by life in prison without parole, then, and the baby is involved, then the judge must consider that fact that the baby was involved when issuing the sentence.
Okay.
And put in writing that they did that and what the result of that was.
So in that instance, it's not, if I understand this correctly, in that instance, it wouldn't be necessarily acknowledging that another individual was killed, but it would be taking that in consideration.
Right. You have mitigating evidence. Well, this is an exacerbating evidence.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right. Circumstance.
Okay.
That's all it is. Right.
Yeah.
Now, Griffin, his mother lived.
Oh.
So
okay.
Griffin,
she just lost the baby. Okay.
Right. So Griffin now, there's no crime for killing him.
Okay.
Which is why, and his family was there on Tuesday, and mostly just crying through the hearing.
Sure.
They didn't actually testify.
Yeah.
I don't think. But this is the state we're in, right? The pro-abortionists are so adamant that we won't do anything to recognize the preborn, that they won't allow justice for these families.
Yeah.
And this isn't like this only happens once in a blue moon. It happens way more often than that, nearly every year. Kathy Souza was testifying. She had 4 of them, 3 or 4 happened in the same year in 1990.
Really?
Yes.
Do other states have laws like this on the book?
38.
On the books? Oh, really? So it's not even unusual.
Oh, no. In fact,
wow.
And many of them go all the way back to conception.
Yeah.
Right? And when we were doing this a couple of years ago, Senator Forsyth led the charge on this a couple of years ago, and that's where we would advocate for anyway.
Sure.
He started with that, but there was a lot of outcry and opposition from the people that do in vitro fertilization.
Mm-hmm.
And so he went, So in order to get them on board, he said, all right, this is what we'll do. Most women don't know they're pregnant anyway until several weeks into the pregnancy.
Yeah.
So we'll go to 8 weeks when the baby is fully formed. And so that's what that's what the original language said. That's what we're trying to get the Senate to put back in. right? So from 8 weeks on, the baby will be protected.
What was the objection from the IVF people?
Well, they have to create a lot of people. So if you go to conception as the beginning of when a person is,
Mm-hmm.
you do IVF, they fertilize how many eggs? 20 maybe. Well, they just created 20 people,
Yeah.
right? If they're lucky, one of those is actually going to live.
Right.
Most of them are not. The first thing they do is they take the 20 and they look at them and they go, well, we're going to throw these 5 away. We're going to throw those
Right.
3 away, right? And now we got a dozen. Okay, then they look at the dozen. The dozen are good enough that we might want to actually use them.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll pick out 3 or 4 or half a dozen, right, which they'll implant,
Yeah.
right? And if that takes, then you might have quadruplets. And they'll go, well, you can't carry quadruplets. That's going to be too hard. So we're going to do selective reduction abortions. And we'll abort as many of them as we think we should, which is all but 1 normally.
Yeah.
So, but at every stage of that, from the time they fertilize, they would have created people, and they were concerned that they might actually be getting charged with homicide
Oh, I see. Okay.
for all the ones that they created and tossed in the trash.
Okay.
Now, I would say that's what they're doing is homicide.
Mm-hmm.
But Senator Forsyth said, look, they'll go along with this if we put enough cushion in the bill,
Okay.
right? Just
Yeah.
like there's an exclusion in the bill for abortion, which is ridiculous, right? But that's the state of the law in the United States of America, thanks to the Supreme Court of the United States.
Right.
So there's an exclusion for abortion is already in the bill, right? So mothers are protected, the IVF business was protected, and it doesn't start until 8 weeks. And that's why it gets such overwhelming support in 2012.
Yeah.
Because he really did a lot of good work and fixed it such that nobody had any real objections, except the pro-aborts who said it's a slippery slope.
Okay. Why is this so hard in New Hampshire? Because it's not like we're. I mean, as far as New England goes, I mean we're
We're the worst.
we're the least liberal state, right? I mean, what?
We are the worst place in the world for a baby.
New Hampshire?
Yes,
Why?
because we're in the country, the United States, which overall ranks among the 4th worst
In terms of abortion
in
rate?
terms of who can actually abort when.
Okay.
The United States there's only 4 countries in the world that allow late-term abortions, as like the United States does. Right? There are
Yeah.
only 4: South Korea, North Korea, China,
I was
the
gonna
United
say-
States and
I was-
Canada.
I was going to
That's
say
it.
China must be in there. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we're in the worst country, and we have no law whatsoever.
But why though?
Why?
Are there? Is it?
Because pro-aborts are strong. Because they
Yeah.
own the Democrat Party.
No, but I'm just trying to figure out.
No. They own the Democrat Party.
Yeah, but that's everywhere, right?
No. Not as much as in New Hampshire.
Really?
Well, 38 states have fetal homicide.
No, but I'm saying though.
California, New York, they have these things.
Yeah, but I would think New Hampshire as a state is more conservative than a lot of these states. See, that's what's surprising
You
to
would
me.
think that.
That
You would be wrong.
The idea that there's, you think so? Is it just my
Yes.
perception? Because it seems like there's states that are more liberal, like you mentioned California, and yet they have fetal homicide, and yet I would think New Hampshire is more conservative than that, and yet we can't have that. It
No.
just surprises
Well, it's
me.
just look what happened with parental notification.
Yeah, well,
Right?
that surprises me too. Yeah.
I mean, this is in more states than that. I think it's 43 states have parental notification
Really?
or consent. Yeah.
Okay.
Look
Yeah.
at abortion statistics. With only 3 states in the country that don't gather abortion statistics and supply them to the Center for Disease Control.
And
Only
we're one
3.
and we're one of them.
We're one of them.
I remember being surprised by that. We had discussed that. I don't remember if that was with you or that might have been with Kathy Souza that we
Could have been. Yeah,
discussed
she
that. But
sponsored that bill.
okay, that makes sense then because I remember being very surprised at that. It was like, what? No one keeps track of these numbers?
Nobody.
That blew me away.
The only way we
Blew me
know,
away.
how many abortions are performed in the state of New Hampshire is we read Alan Guttmacher's report. So the research arm of Planned Parenthood gathers this information,
Yeah.
and they tell us what they tell us.
Okay.
And that's all we got to go on.
No kidding. That's incredible. That must be frustrating.
Well, yeah, frustrating.
I
I mean, let's face it, being pro-life in New Hampshire is pretty frustrating because
Yeah.
of But yeah, the pro-aborts own the Democrat Party, and the Republican Party has no spine.
Are there Republicans in the New Hampshire state legislature who are pro-choice?
Absolutely.
Okay. Because I would think that would be part of it, too. Like I said, if you have Republicans, because, we see...
Look at who we're talking about nominating for a senator.
Yeah.
Come on.
Scott Brown,
Give me a break. Guy's not pro-life. He's not even pro-gun. And
I know.
We're importing this guy to run for us to represent the Republican Party? I can't believe it. I'm sorry. That's off.
No, it's interesting, though. It's the Scott Brown thing is interesting. I wonder if he'll try to adapt to... because I don't see how he's going to get very far if he doesn't. But
he can't. If he does, he'll be such a hypocrite,
right?
that nobody would support him.
Right. He'll look like even more of a carpetbagger if he does.
Well, it's not the carpetbagger business; it's the hypocrisy.
Right.
This seems to be about the only thing that I want to say the general public at large really takes to heart is hypocrisy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because they certainly don't take the life of the preborn to heart. They don't take the inalienable right to life to heart.
But how many Republicans? I mean, can you put a percentage on it? How many Republicans now in the New Hampshire state legislature wouldn't support any of this?
Any of this? Oh, I don't think that. For that, I would say the number is actually quite small.
Really?
Maybe 10.
Okay. Still, though, that's it surprises me a little bit that it's that difficult here.
I mean, I could name 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Which I'll choose not to do.
Okay. Well, you can if you want to.
But I wouldn't be surprised if there were another half a dozen that I don't actually know.
Sure. Okay. What else do we have? So
that's House Bill 1503. That's in the Senate.
Okay.
With the Judiciary Committee. So nobody's actually getting any input onto this, except if you call the Judiciary Committee members or get a hold of them.
Yeah.
And just tell them to put it back. This is what everybody that testified that I heard at that hearing said, except for the guy that did the amendment. He testified.
Okay.
Said just put back the original language, right? And then go fight it out with the House in a conference committee.
Yeah.
So that's what we want to happen, and that's what the Senate. But the only thing we can do with that right now is contact senators and tell them that's what we want.
Right.
Because they're all going to vote on it.
Right.
And all it takes is 13 votes to say, send it back. So that's that.
Okay.
The other thing I wanted to really talk about is Senate Bill 319.
Yeah.
Senate Bill 319 is also known as the Buffer Zone Bill, which establishes a 25-foot zone around any entrance or driveway to an abortion clinic only, in which nobody can stay.
Okay.
Period.
And is the idea...
Nobody can stay there. Doesn't matter what you're doing, you can't stay there.
Is this whose is this? Who's proposing this? Where did this come from?
Where it came from? It came out of the abortion mills.
So is the idea, it's the harassment. They don't want, in other words, if someone's going in for an abortion, they don't want them to be spoken to, given information, tried to be talked out of it.
So the problem is this, that in Manchester and in Greenland and in Concord, there are people that go out in front of the abortion clinics and they pray. This is terrible. We cannot have this. Some of them have pro-life signs.
Sure.
Certainly can't have that. Some of them actually try to help these women. Mm-hmm. Right? They actually offer them hope, because most women going into abortion clinics are hopeless. That's why they're there. And they offer them hope. They actively attempt to engage them, to persuade them that they are in fact there to help, mm-hmm. to save them and their babies from the devastation of what's going to occur if they go inside, and to connect them with pregnancy centers or other resources in the area, mm-hmm. to support them in carrying their children. Now, they're not very successful at all.
Did you say 25 feet?
25 feet from any entrance or driveway.
That's a lot.
A lot. If you're in Concord, 25 feet from the entrance to the Feminist Health Center puts you out in the middle of Main Street. Right smack in the, well, not right smack in the middle, but you're in the middle of this 4 lanes of traffic there, and you're in the second lane out.
Yeah.
Right? And they own all the way to the corner. So you have to go across the other street, Thompson Street, and a few feet, well, probably cross Thompson Street would be far enough.
Yeah.
Right? If you come down the other way toward the north side, it takes you up there someplace, and you're in front of somebody's business.
Yeah.
Right? In Manchester, it takes you completely across the street.
Yeah. That's a pretty big buffer zone.
In front of people's apartments.
Right. Right.
Right. In fact, I've seen letters at the union leader about, you can't be pushing these people out in front of our apartments.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'm not sure, in Greenland, they'd either have to go across the street or just further down the sidewalk up by the cemetery or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact of the matter is 25 feet is so far that you can't engage somebody in conversation.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what they want. They do not want to lose a customer. This is our cash coming in the door. You will not disrupt our cash flow. And that's what it's about. Nothing else.
From my point of view, see, I have some mixed feelings about it. On the one hand, I don't like the idea of someone being harassed under any circumstances, really, regardless of what they're going to do. If they're doing something legal, and this is legal right now in the United States, then there's that part of me that also doesn't like the idea of I don't know if I'm an absolutist exactly, but close to an absolutist in terms of the First Amendment.
Well, yeah, the First Amendment. There's only 3 parts of the First Amendment that are in violation by this statute, as far as I read it, right? So, first of all, is nobody can tell me I can't stand on a public sidewalk and pray.
Right. Right.
I don't care where that public sidewalk is.
Right. Agreed.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's my free exercise of religion.
Yeah.
Down the chute. Nobody can tell me that I don't have the freedom to speak in a public area.
Right.
Right. I mean, for goodness sakes, the First Amendment protected the Nazis marching down the streets of Chicago.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. Oh,
and
yeah.
they don't protect a meme who wants to say to a woman, I can help you?
Right. Right.
Give me,
Yeah.
right? And then the freedom to assemble.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 of us want to get there and do that,
Yeah.
isn't that our freedom of assembly?
Right. And that's the part that makes me queasy about it. Even though I'm pro-choice, I'm nervous about something like this for that reason.
Right. So they claim that this is a terrifying experience for the women coming in for abortion.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they claim. Now, we already have federal law, the Freedom of Abortion Clinic Entrance Act, that says you can't obstruct the entrance.
Okay, I didn't know about that. I didn't know that
yes.
existed. Okay.
Senator Carson, when they were debating this in the Senate, actually called the police departments where these clinics are and said, I wonder how many complaints you have about this situation.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, what do you mean complaints? We never get any complaints.
Right.
It's the same thing when I go get the permits for the March for Life.
Yeah.
We've been doing this for 40 years. They're going, oh, yeah, never any problem, blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
We're well known.
Yeah.
They know what we're going to do. They know it's offensive to people.
Right.
They never have any problems, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
But-
I wouldn't expect they would, yeah.
Right, but the Senate thought they did because they signed that's what they did. I mean, you can read these findings, and they're basically saying we're terrorizing these women, right?
Yeah.
And so we have to have a law that says that it violates 3 of our 5 protections from the First Amendment of the Constitution.
So is this currently in play? This
Is currently in play. This has passed the Senate,
Okay.
and it's gone to the House. It's in the House Judiciary Committee, and the public hearing is scheduled for April 22nd, and at airtime, it didn't have a time. But the House Judiciary Committee has Senate Bill 319, buffer zone bill, to act upon. And obviously, we're going to do the best we can to persuade them that they should just say no to this altogether.
Yeah.
Is
anything?
And it may be moot anyway.
Oh.
Because Massachusetts has a law like this.
Okay.
It's at the United States Supreme Court. So the United States Supreme Court may just say, no, you can't do that. That's stupid.
Yeah, if they strike it down, then it's over.
But on the other hand, it's at the U.S. Supreme Court, so you never know.
Well, a conservative
Depends on
leaning-
which way Kennedy's leaning that day.
I know. Yeah, that's true. That's
See,
true.
But isn't that an awful thing to think, that we can look at the Supreme Court and say, well, we already know those 4 people are going to be pro-abort. We already know this.
I wouldn't be surprised if they strike that down. But do other states other than Massachusetts have this? Is this a common thing? Do you know? Because I haven't heard of
I
this.
don't know of other states that have. I remember thinking about, there was one in Buffalo they tried to do. I think they tried to do the same thing in New York, and they didn't survive long enough to get to the Supreme Court.
Okay.
But Massachusetts has.
Okay.
So no, this is not a widespread thing. No.
Okay. Well, that must give you some hope then. Between that and going to the Supreme Court.
Well, yeah, but see, and this is my business, is to stimulate people to actually get on the phone.
Yeah.
And call the House Judiciary Committee.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, you can get all their information at GenCourt, GENCOURT. Oh no, it's state.New Hampshire. At the New Hampshire General Court website.
Okay, yeah.
It's too complicated for me to. I actually do know it, but
yeah. People can figure it out, certainly.
So,
all right, so that's interesting.
So those are both very actively in play right now.
Is this bill new? Because the other one, Griffin's Law, that we've seen a version of that before, obviously, but this is a brand new thing.
This is a brand new thing. See, 2 years ago, it's been a long time since the Democrats had both the House and Senate and the governorship.
Right.
Right. So they weren't ever able to do this before. But now, the Democrats they don't actually own the Senate, but they got 2-3 senators, like Jeb Bradley is a co-sponsor of this piece of trash, right?
Yeah.
He's a Republican, you know.
Right. Yeah, well.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do have some of those who will go for this. That's interesting. Now, is there anything else, or is there more legislation that's in play right now, or those?
No, the rest of it has gone down the tubes one way or another.
Yeah. What else? We have a few minutes left. Is there anything else that you're hoping to see, or that may be reintroduced in terms of legislation?
Oh no, anything that's going to get reintroduced would have to be by underhanded chicanery of the Democrats.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't know about that.
Right.
No, I don't anticipate. That's very uncommon in New Hampshire anyway. I mean, that's what they're talking about doing with the casino bill.
Yeah.
Right? Because they can do that. They can take any bill that's out there and they can amend it to remove the entire text, including the title. They've done it, right? Yeah. And substitute a whole new thing. Right? It could be on a completely different subject. That can be done.
Right.
And that's what they're talking about. That's how they're talking about reviving casinos in the state, in the House.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they may. But I have no idea, I wouldn't have a clue as to how they would do that, what they would use for that or whatever, but
yeah,
it can be done. So no, I don't see anything else on the legislative agenda.
Yeah.
But what I would urge people to talk about is person. What is it to be a person?
Mm-hmm.
So, and I just give you some ideas. What if we could make a robot that could come in here and do what I'm doing for you right now? No notes, no nothing.
Oh, that's coming, Kurt.
No, that's already here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Just sit here and talk to you, and whatever you bring up.
Right.
Right? If you bring up the Red Sox and throw that into the mix, well, I can respond to that and carry that along with you, right?
Right.
And if you want to talk about playing marbles, I remember that.
Yeah.
Right? And I can respond to that, right?
Yeah.
What if we had such a machine? Would that be a person?
Mm.
Would that be a person? What if we could genetically engineer you to be over 7 feet tall, with the and built,
right?
By say putting some gorilla genes in you and some giraffe genes.
Well, I am very hairy, but
would you still be a person?
Yeah,
right? Now, you may say these things are far-fetched, but they're not.
No, they're not. Oh, no.
They're practical.
No, not at all.
In fact,
they've
actually taken, I think we talked about this a little bit last time I was here, they've actually taken the genes out of a jellyfish and merged them into an embryo and gotten a blue human.
Yes. Someone else was talking about this recently.
Yeah.
And
Now, here's the question. They killed her after 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Or something, because the law doesn't allow them to experiment with non-humans. I thought we outlawed human experimentation back in World War II or something like that.
Yeah.
But this is not human experimentation that they're doing?
It sure
so we don't have
like
any laws about these things in our state.
Right. The laws haven't kept up with the technology.
Well, some places have them.
Yeah.
Right? But we don't.
Right.
Right? What if they made 15 of you? right? This is very doable nowadays.
Yeah.
Right? You just take off some of your skin or something, and they go make 15 more of you. Are those, do they the same? They have all the same rights and everything as you do?
Well, they shouldn't. They wouldn't be as good as me.
Well,
I'm the original.
No, they'd be the same as you. They would be you.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? This is that commercial on television. You see that? Where she plans her future, and it didn't quite work out, so she found a novel and to make 4 more of her.
Oh, no.
And there's 5, so you see 5 of her in the kitchen making dinner. And
oh, really? Yeah.
And at the end, the 4 of them are playing tennis together, which is...
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I was thinking of that movie, the Michael Keaton movie, Multiplicity.
Yeah.
You ever see that?
No,
yeah.
I haven't.
But each copy of him is not as good as the...
oh, right. Just fades a little bit as it goes
Right,
along.
right, yeah. We're out of time. This goes quick. Before we go, what websites do we need to know about?
You should look at nhrtl.org. That's on the web, and it's also on Facebook.
Okay.
And you'll be seeing what we're talking about, what we're doing, various events that are coming up. So one of the things you talk about, we try to publicize events for all kinds of people. Like Abby Johnson was just up in Dartmouth last week.
Yeah.
And we did a lot of stuff to publicize for that. So you'll see what's going on. We try to be on top of everything pro-life in the state.
Okay. And I encourage people to get involved. I mean, even though, again, I'm pro-choice, but honestly, I love seeing people who feel one way or about it or the other to take a position, take a stand, get involved. I always say the greatest threat to our liberty is apathy.
That's absolutely right.
So I always encourage people to get involved regardless of what side you're on. And Kurt, this has been great. Thank you so much.
My pleasure,
man. We disagree sort of, but there's some common ground. Like I said, some of that Griffin's Law.
It's one of the most troubling things to me that we haven't been able to find this in the legislative arena,
exactly,
in the judicial arena, because I'm very sure that this thing, if the buffer zone, is going to be a 5-4 decision at the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And for me, it just tells me how spiritual this really is.
Yeah, yeah.
Because these people who are at the highest level of we're going to be objective and rational, we already know which way they're going to go.
That is very, very, very true. Very true. Gary, if you're watching, I hope you're feeling better. Come back soon, brother. And if you're watching us live on Wednesday, Progress Report is up next. And I would remind you, too, of course, Thursday nights on the Dr. Kevin Radio Network is the radio edition of Matt Connarton Unleashed. I'll be on tomorrow night at 9 p.m. And I'm going to say something tomorrow night. I'm going to address a particular issue that's big nationally right now that will probably really anger my liberal friends. So I have to remind everyone once in a while that I'm a centrist because people think I'm,
been hanging around with Gary for too long.
Exactly. So I have to, kind of put that back in there. So Kurt, thank you again. And thanks everybody for watching, and we'll talk at you later. Here we go.